30% of the people who die from cancer actually are dying from the muscle weakness that's associated with the cancer. What people fail to realize is that the number one predictor of your length of life, not even just your quality of life, but your length of life for people is your muscle mass and your strength relative to your size. So we know that if we're stronger, we live longer. So there's this axiom, only the strong survive. And it's really a literal truism that if you are in the strongest third of the population, you are half as likely to die between 40 and 60 as somebody who's in the weakest third of the population. Fully 30% of the people who die from cancer actually are dying from the muscle weakness that's associated with the cancer. And so if you're in the strongest third of the population, you're one quarter as likely to die from cancer. And it's not because you don't get cancer, it's that we have all these wonderful treatments and these things that are very good about attacking the cancer. But if you're not strong enough to survive those treatments, because even though they are effective, many of them are very, very hard on the rest of our body. If you don't have the strength when you start those treatments, you're not going to come out the other side. So as we think about these things and as we understand a little bit more about the different types of exercise and how they're going to be really important for our body to function, they become even more important than just, oh, you're going to look good. Because that's what people think. I don't need to exercise because it's only for this aesthetics. Well, people also don't realize that our neurocognitive function is also related to our fitness. So the best predictor of your brain function is actually your cardiovascular fitness. So if you are fitter, your brain works better. So lots of people are worried about Alzheimer's disease or other neurocognitive diseases or these diseases of learning and memory. One of the best predictors is actually your grip strength, and it's inversely related to the rate at which you're going to get diseases of dementia. So if you are stronger, if you have a really strong grip, if you have a really strong body, not only do you have a lower chance of dying from cancer, from heart disease, and from other things that are going to kill us, it actually is going to prevent or help us not get these neurocognitive diseases, these problems of our brain that lead to dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and other things like that. So I just try and make it really clear that everybody think, "Oh, yeah, I should exercise." Well, they always think of why I should exercise as being this aesthetic component, but it's not. It has nothing to do with that. It actually has to do with increasing the longevity and the quality of your life.
So, in terms of long term health and longevity, is the benefit coming from the muscles themselves being strengthened, or is it the secondary benefit on the cardiovascular system, or is it a bit of a combination of the two?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, it's a combination of the two. And I always actually use another Scottish doctor's famous studies. Morris was the first one to look at London bus drivers and ticket takers on the double decker buses, and what he found there in the first study that was the quite famous study is that the bus drivers had more cardiovascular disease than the ticket takers who walked up and down the stairs all day. And so the idea there was that, okay, this rhythmic exercise of doing up and down the stairs is going to have this beneficial cardiovascular effect. He then did a follow up study where he compared letter carriers to heavy workers. And the heavy workers were machinists who were picking up heavy things all day. So they had a combination of the rhythmic exercising and the heavy strength exercise. And what he found for cardiovascular disease that the heavy strength people actually did better. And so what we think is happening is twofold. The first thing is, yes, we're having this cardiovascular effect that's going to help our hearts be better, whether we do the endurance or the rhythmic exercise or we do the strength based exercise. The important other component is that we're having a positive effect on the brain. And what that means is that our brains are working better. And that's important not only so that we can think and so that we don't sound like, we've forgotten everything like we're a dawdling old man, but it's also important because what it does is when I'm out and I'm walking and I trip on something, my brain is going to function better to get my foot out in front of me so that I can stop myself from falling. And it's going to also prevent the likelihood of me getting that fall and that broken bone. It's going to do other things that are going to be beneficial. As my body is strengthened, my balance improves. So there's all kinds of different levels at which having both the stronger body is going to help you prevent falls, for example. If I'm stronger, my body is actually used to and is much better at getting those balance components. If I do things where I practice lifting, one of the components that we need to practice is we need to practice the actual, what we call the proprioceptors, the little sensors within our muscles and our tendons, which tell us where our body is in space. And as I practice that by doing these exercises, now when I go out and I'm not doing the exercises, my body actually functions better. It feels where it is better. And so I'm much less likely to trip. I'm going to have better balance. I'm going to have all of these things, which are also correlated with longevity. So we know that if somebody has better balance, they're going to live longer. We know that if somebody has a traumatic fall and breaks their, say, their hip, the life expectancy in an older individual who does that is less than 1 year. So if we can prevent those things, not only by having a stronger skeleton from doing that impact loading that we're doing with our exercise, but also having a brain that works better and better proprioceptors, better sensors within our body. Now what our body is doing is it's just working so much better on so many different levels.